Have you ever looked in the mirror and asked yourself, who am I beyond what I give to others? There comes a moment in life, often after years of giving, fixing, pleasing, when something inside quietly breaks. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your chest, a weight that's not yours, but that you've been carrying for decades. You thought love meant sacrifice. You were taught that being a good person meant putting others first, and so you did. For your partner, your children, your friends, your parents, you became everything for everyone, except yourself. But here's the truth Carl Jung pointed to. When we constantly betray our own needs to keep others comfortable, we disconnect from our soul, and the cost of that, it's devastating, but invisible, until one day it isn't. So what actually happens when you stop sacrificing yourself for everyone else? It might not be what you think. It's not just peace. It's not just boundaries. It's shock, guilt, grief, liberation, power, truth. And yes, it might surprise you who stays and who leaves. Let's begin. You didn't notice it at first. You said yes to that favor, skipped that trip, stayed silent during that argument, made yourself smaller so someone else could feel big. And slowly, very slowly, you started to disappear. At first, it looked like kindness. You were the one everyone could count on, the strong one, the selfless one, the good one. But behind the smile was someone tired. Behind the silence was someone afraid to be rejected. Behind the giving was someone starving for permission to receive. You thought, if I just love harder, they'll love me back the way I need. But what if I told you that love, when it becomes self-erasure, is no longer love, it's survival? Carl Jung warned us, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But how can you accept yourself when every day you send the message to your soul that you come last? The price of that isn't just emotional, it's existential. You wake up in a life that doesn't feel like yours. You laugh in rooms where you feel alone. You look at your partner, your friends, your families, and quietly wonder, do they love me, or the role I've been playing? This is where the deep inner fracture begins. And here's what's even more painful. Most people won't notice you're suffering, because you trained them not to. You made it easy for others to take, to lean on you, to depend on your silence, your smile, your yes. You taught them, often with the best intentions, that you had no needs of your own, but every time you said yes when your body screamed no, every time you were the strong one when you were barely holding on, every time you made their life easier by making yours harder, you paid in soul currency. Now the question is, are you ready to stop paying? Because when you do, everything changes. You've been told your whole life, you're so nice. They say it with a smile. They admire your patience, your willingness to help, your ability to stay calm while others fall apart. But no one asks, at what cost? You've worn the mask of the nice person for so long that even you started to believe it was real. But under that smile, there's a storm. Not chaos, not cruelty, not bitterness. Rage. And this rage isn't loud. It doesn't scream or punch walls. It sits. It waits, it simmers. It builds every time you swallow a truth, every time you minimize your pain, every time you choose peace over honesty. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of us we repress, deny, or disown. For the self-sacrificing person, rage is one of the deepest shadows. Because you were never allowed to be angry, were you? You had to be the good daughter, the dependable son, the perfect partner. Anger would make you seem selfish, ungrateful, dramatic. So instead of letting your anger speak, you buried it. But buried emotions don't die, they rot. And eventually that rot seeps into your relationships. See, it shows up in subtle resentment, in coldness, in distance, in the quiet hope that someone will finally notice how much you're holding in, without you needing to say a word. Here's the truth. You can't keep playing the role of the nice one and expect to be truly known, because niceness, when it's performative, is not intimacy. It's a mask, and masks can't be loved. Only you can. That includes the version of you who's angry, who's tired, who doesn't want to be agreeable anymore, who needs to scream, cry, say no, or just be alone. The rage you feel isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're finally waking up. And when you stop fearing your angers and start listening to it, it becomes one of the most honest, life-saving voices in your life. Not destructive, but protective. Not out of control. But finally, in your control, you're not too much. You were just never allowed to be whole. Carl Jung didn't romanticize sacrifice. He understood something many of us are only now beginning to feel in our bones. That self-sacrifice, when done unconsciously, is not love. It's a form of self-rejection. Jung believed that every act of goodness, if not rooted in wholeness, creates a shadow. And the shadow of constant sacrifice, its resentment, its guilt, its identity loss, its hidden rage. It's the quiet belief that you only matter when you're useful to others. He wrote, "The most damaging thing in the life of a person is to be unreal, to live in a way that is not true to the self." And isn't that what endless sacrifice often is? A performance, a survival strategy, a way to earn belonging without risking the truth of who we really are. Jung's work reminds us that light and shadow are twins, and if you shine too brightly outward without feeding your own inner fire, you burn out. Not in a dramatic way, slowly, silently, invisibly. It often begins in childhood. You might have learned early that being loved meant being needed, that you were valuable when you made others happy, that to receive affection, you had to earn it. Through behavior, through helpfulness, through self-denial. So you adapted. You became easy. You anticipated everyone else's needs before your own. And now, decades later, you find yourself exhausted, overextended, struggling to feel anything beyond duty. That's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to wake up from that pattern. Jung taught that we cannot become whole without reclaiming the parts of ourselves we exiled. And that includes the part of you that's angry, the part that says, "I don't want to do this anymore." The part that longs for a different life, but is terrified to name it. You are not here just to meet expectations. You are here to live in alignment with yourself, the deeper, wiser, truer you beneath the roles, the performance, and the fear of disappointing others. And the moment you stop idealizing sacrifice as noble and start seeing it as a habit of self-abandonment, something extraordinary happens. You begin the journey back to your own center. It's not just bad luck, it's not just coincidence. There's a reason you keep ending up in relationships, romantic, familial, professional, where you give more than you receive, where your needs go unnoticed, where the moment you set a boundary, the other person pulls away or lashes out. Carl Jung would say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The truth is, people who habitually sacrifice themselves often attract those who unconsciously expect it. And when your value has always come from being needed, you mistake being used for being loved. These dynamics don't start in adulthood. They begin in your earliest attachments. Maybe you had to care for a parent emotionally. Maybe love was conditional. Maybe you were praised for being low maintenance, helpful, quiet. You learned that attention came when you performed. That conflict was dangerous. That being wanted meant being convenient. And so now, as an adult, you carry a subconscious magnetism, not to healthy reciprocity, but to roles where you feel safest by being useful. That's why you attract the emotionally unavailable partner who relies on your emotional labor, the friend who always needs something but disappears when you need support, the boss who praises your dedication while piling on more work. It's not your fault, but it's a pattern that only breaks when you stop performing for love and start requiring it. And yes, and when you begin to change, people will notice. The ones who benefited from your self-erasure won't call it healing. They'll call it selfishness, but that's because your boundaries interrupt their comfort, not your worth. Here's the paradox. When you begin honoring your energy, you may lose people, but you also make space for those who never wanted you to shrink in the first place. Not everyone will survive your awakening, but the ones who truly love you, the ones who see your worth beyond your usefulness, they will remain. And for the first time, you'll know the difference between being needed and being truly loved. There's a moment, quiet but unmistakable, when your body begins to speak louder than your voice ever did. It starts subtly. Tension in your shoulders, a tight chest, sleepless nights, fatigue that no amount of rest can fix, headaches, stomach issues. Doctors say everything looks fine, but you know something's wrong because it's not just physical, it's personal. It's psychological, spiritual, existential. Carl Jung believed the psyche is not separate from the body, but expressed through it. When the soul is silenced for too long, the body becomes the final stage where the truth is forced to play out. And if you've lived a life of constant sacrifice, people-pleasing, emotional suppression, your body remembers every yes that should have been a no, every time you swallowed your pain to keep the peace, every time you felt invisible in a room full of people who needed you but never saw you. Your nervous system was listening. Your muscles were holding it in. Your immune system started to struggle. This isn't dramatization, it's trauma physiology. Chronic self-abandonment becomes chronic stress. Chronic stress becomes chronic illness. And by the time your body breaks down, it's not betrayal. It's the final cry for your attention. It's saying, I can't carry this alone anymore. The migraines, the autoimmune flares, the insomnia, they're not random. They're the body's way of saying, please choose you before it's too late. The solution isn't just medication, it's liberation. It's learning to say no. To rest without guilt, to feel your emotions without fear, to reclaim your own rhythm. You don't need to earn your right to exist, you already do. Your body is not your enemy. It's your ally, your fiercest, most loyal truth-teller. And if you listen closely, it just might lead you home. There comes a moment, often small, unceremonious, when you say a quiet, trembling word you've never allowed yourself to say out loud, enough. It might be in the middle of a conversation, or after a sleepless night, or standing in the kitchen, holding back tears, realizing you can't keep doing this anymore. You say it not with anger, but with truth, not to hurt anyone, but to finally stop hurting yourself. And then the world shifts. Some people pull away, some get angry, some look at you with confusion, even betrayal, and ask, what happened to you? What they really mean is, what happened to the version of you who always said yes, who made our life easier, who never asked for anything in return? Because here's what no one tells you about healing. The moment you begin to honor yourself, you become inconvenient to the roles you once played. You're no longer the fixer, the peacemaker, the emotional container for everyone else's pain. You're not cold, you're not cruel, you're clear. And clarity, for those who relied on your confusion, can feel like rejection. But it's not rejection, it's reclamation. This is the test of your growth. Can you tolerate the discomfort of being misunderstood in order to be truly free? Because it will happen. The shift will cause waves. The people who benefited from your silence may not know how to relate to your voice, but the ones who love you, really love you, not the performance, they'll stay. They might even look at you with more respect than ever before. You'll begin to experience something radical, relationships built on truth, not obligation, where you can say no without punishment, where your needs are not negotiated, where your worth isn't tied to how much you give, but to the fact that you exist. And in that space, your healing becomes a mirror. Your boundaries become invitations, not to control others, but to show them how to meet you in truth. It starts with one word, spoken softly, spoken bravely. Enough. You've said enough, you've started choosing yourself, and then it hits you like a wave. Guilt. Not just any guilt, a deep, almost primal guilt. The kind that whispers, you're being selfish. They need you. What if they get hurt? Who do you think you are? It doesn't matter that you're finally setting boundaries, that you're exhausted, that you're healing. The guilt doesn't care, because guilt isn't always a sign you've done something wrong. Sometimes it's a sign you're doing something different. Carl Jung once said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And guilt is often the pain of leaving behind an old identity, the self-sacrificing version of you who made everyone else comfortable, often at your own expense. You were conditioned to feel guilty the moment you chose yourself. Why? Because somewhere along the way love became linked to self-denial. You were praised for putting others first. You were rewarded for your silence, for your helpfulness, for your strength. And so now, choosing rest over overextension, truth over compliance, boundaries over burnout. It feels wrong. But that's not your intuition speaking. That's your programming. Here's what most people don't realize. Guilt is not always a moral compass. Sometimes it's a chain, and the moment you feel it, you have a choice. Do you shrink back into the old pattern, just to make the guilt stop? Or do you breathe through it, knowing it's just the echo of a life that no longer fits? This chapter of your healing will demand courage, because guilt will visit you again and again. Not because you're doing harm, but because you're doing something revolutionary. You're choosing yourself in a world that taught you that doing so is betrayal. But here's the deeper truth, the one guilt doesn't want you to hear. Your freedom doesn't harm others. Your truth doesn't destroy love, it reveals it. And your self-respect is not selfishness, it's sacred. Let the guilt come, let it shake, let it cry. Then, let it pass, because beyond guilt is your true self, waiting. After the guilt fades, after the roles dissolve, and there's a strange, unfamiliar silence, and in that silence a question rises. If I'm not who I was, then who am I now? It's disorienting. You spent years, maybe decades, being the helper, the caretaker, the one who always held it together. That identity gave you a sense of place in the world. It gave you meaning. It made you feel needed. But now, with all that stripped away, there's space. And space, though freeing, can feel terrifying. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the slow, sometimes painful, unfolding of the true self after we let go of who we thought we had to be. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens in the quiet choices, the day you say no and don't explain yourself, the moment you allow yourself pleasure, rest, creativity, without guilt, the conversations where you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Rebuilding. Your identity is not about reinventing yourself into some better version. It's about remembering. Who were you before the world told you who to be? What did you love, long for, dream of, before life taught you to settle, to serve, to disappear? This is the sacred work, to let the roles fall away, to grieve the identity that once protected you, and to slowly, lovingly meet the parts of yourself that were waiting to be seen. You may feel lost at first. You may feel lonely, but you are not empty. You are becoming whole. This chapter is where self-respect takes root, where desires return, where boundaries feel natural, not forced, where your worth is no longer something to earn, but something you embody. And the beautiful, shocking truth? You don't need to go searching for who you are. You need only to stop betraying who you've always been. There's a fear that creeps in when you begin choosing yourself. What if I lose everyone? It's not an irrational fear, because when you stop over-functioning, when you stop softening your edges, when you stop saying yes out of fear of being left, some people do leave, and it hurts, it feels personal. But the truth is, it's not about who you are, it's about who they needed you to be. Carl Jung taught that every transformation requires death, not always of the body, but of identity, illusion, and sometimes of relationships that can't withstand our truth. But here's the part no one talks about. Some people stay. They stay. Not because you kept them comfortable, but because they saw you, even when you didn't fully see yourself. They stay because their love was never built on your silence, your compliance, or your emotional labor. They stay because they love you, not your performance. And this realization is deeply healing. You begin to see which connections were real, which ones were rooted in mutual respect, not emotional dependency. You learn that healthy love doesn't punish you for growing. It celebrates your return to yourself. These relationships, the ones that survive your transformation, become sacred. They're slower, more honest. They don't require masks. They hold space for your anger, your boundaries, your needs, without shame, and they often surprise you. Sometimes the people who stay are not the ones you expected, and sometimes the ones you thought would love you forever fall away. That's not failure, that's clarity. Your job is not to keep everyone in your life. Your job is to become so real, so honest, so rooted in your own soul, that only what's true can remain. Let go of who left, celebrate who stayed, and most of all, stay with yourself, because in the end, that's the one relationship you'll never lose. It doesn't come with fireworks, it's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't look like the kind of power we're taught to admire, the kind that controls, conquers, or impresses. No, true inner power is quiet, rooted, undeniable. It comes after the breakdown, after the shedding, after the tears you cried alone in the middle of the night when no one saw you choosing yourself for the first time, and trembling. It's not the power of the ego. It's the power of the self, the deeper, authentic you that no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. Carl Jung understood this well. He believed that our journey wasn't to become perfect, but whole. And wholeness means owning both your light and your shadow, your love and your limits, your compassion and your boundaries. This is what happens when you stop sacrificing yourself for others. You don't become harder, you become clearer. You don't become selfish, you become sovereign. You stop needing external validation because you've made peace with your own truth. You start saying no without guilt. You start saying yes to what once scared you. Rest, joy, solitude, pleasure, truth. Your presence changes. People feel it when you walk into a room, not because you demand attention, but because you no longer abandon yourself to receive it. This is the quiet revolution of returning home to who you are. You no longer ask, "Am I allowed to take up space?" You know, "I was born to." You no longer perform. You live. And what you'll notice, slowly, softly, is that everything around you begins to align. The chaos fades. The people you attract shift. Your body calms. Your spirit deepens. You don't need to fight for love. You become love, not in sacrifice but in truth. This is the life that was waiting for you, not the one built on pleasing, but the one born from presence. Welcome to your power. You've earned it. Thank you for watching. Truly, if this message touched something deep inside you, you're not alone. This space was created for people like you, who are ready to stop living on autopilot and start living in truth. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and most importantly, join the conversation in the comments. Tell me, what part of this video resonated the most with you? What's your story of self-sacrifice and awakening? What did it cost you? What did it teach you? And if you had to name this chapter of your life, what would you call it? I read every comment, Wes, because this isn't just content. It's connection. It's healing. It's human. Your voice matters here, and someone out there might need your story to take their first step. With all my respect, until next time, take care of yourself like someone worth protecting, because you are.